Hey guys, welcome back to my channel. It's been a while now, but I'm back with more concept designs for Marvel Rivals characters. So, one thing I am interested in seeing in the game is more villain characters. On one hand, I understand it may be more difficult to include playable villains for lore reasons, but at the same time, I feel like there are so many opportunities for funny interactions between the heroes and villains begrudgingly working together, evidenced by the recent addition of Ultron in the game. I think besides Ultron, there aren't any other truly villainous characters in the game. I feel like characters like Loki and Venom are seen more as anti-heroes by the general public nowadays, thanks to the film adaptations. So, taking all of that into account, I've chosen two characters that I believe are at least generally perceived as villains, but I think could potentially be convinced to team up with their enemies under certain circumstances. To be fair, I actually think that most villains can fall into that latter category, but without further ado, let's get started. Up first, we have Zemo, truly one of the more irredeemable characters in Marvel. I was first introduced to the character through Avengers Earth's Mightiest Heroes, which featured Heinrich Zemo, the 12th Baron Zemo, who was a Nazi enemy of Captain America during the Second World War. However, I think a lot more modern comics feature his son, the 13th Baron, Helmut Zemo, so I sort of drew inspiration from both for this design. Lucky for me, they really are quite similar, and the overlap is significant. Technically, in the final, I do decide that this is Helmut Zemo, but again, a lot of my knowledge of this character comes from the Earth's Mightiest Heroes, which was actually his father. I mentioned earlier that the characters I picked for this week's concepts were ones that I believe would work with the heroes for specific reasons, and you might think, why would Mr. Evil Guy ever have a reason to work with his enemies? And to that I say, number one, there was a whole episode of Earth's Mightiest Heroes that featured Zemo asking the Avengers to protect him from Enchantress, and then they have a whole Masters of Evil and Avengers team up. And number two, Zemo is the guy that created the first Thunderbolts team, where he and a group of other villains posed as heroes to the public. Evidently, Zemos have no issue in playing hero if it means furthering their own nefarious goals. Speaking of the Thunderbolts, the identity that Zemo assumed during this arc was of Citizen V, and I included just a bit of a hint to that in the anti-telepathy headband thing, just as a little designy thing for me, not really for the character. I also tried looking online to see if there were any depictions of a Zemo family crest, and this is basically the only thing I found. It's a pretty standard bird design, so I incorporated it into the hilt of the sword. I definitely tried to maintain a sort of regality in my design from Heinrich, while also keeping the tactical aspect of some of the accessories that are more present in Helmut's character. Another thing I really considered for the design of this character was the class. I'm still not sure I picked the right one, because I can see arguments for any of them, really. I settled on Vanguard for my Zemo, mostly because he could be a direct reflection of his main enemy, Captain America. A lot of iterations for this character also give him enhanced strength and durability, so this doesn't seem like a far-fetched idea to me. Although he is also canonically a genius strategist and tactician, and his fighting style leans more duelist to me, so really all three classes could work for him. Let me know in the comments how you think this character should be classed if he was in the game. And with that, today's first character is done. I'll include the full render with the descriptions and the game background at the end, but now we move on to the next villain character, Taskmaster. Taskmaster was requested by Isaiah Davis 5957 from the YouTube comment section, and I thought this character fit pretty well with this villain-themed video I planned for today. Now, Taskmaster, aka Tony Masters, is a mercenary for hire, which means he will do any job as long as he gets paid. I say he's a villain because that's the role he plays in pretty much every story that he's in, but again, could be convinced into playing a hero role for the right price. I think lore-wise, Taskmaster is really easy to work into Rivals. I think where the problem is for this character is the abilities. Taskmaster in the comics has photographic reflexes, meaning he can copy any physical ability that he observes, given that it is humanly possible for him to perform. I think it might be a bit complicated to replicate this in the game. At first, I thought it might be interesting to copy the abilities of either teammates or enemy characters, but it would be really similar to Loki's ability. Or instead of having his own unique abilities, he essentially has a combination of various existing heroes. But that, I'm afraid, might get confusing for players. I'm not really sure how likely we will see this character being brought to the game for this reason, but that's not important, because that is what I and other fan artists are here for. After all, we're focusing on character designs today, not the details of game mechanics. So, for the design, I basically took the original blue and orange comic design and tried to modernize it. I used a couple of elements from, like, modern warfare tactical suits, and I kind of ended up somewhere between that and Mandalorian armor, which is not a bad thing. Mandalorians are some of the coolest people in Star Wars, and I did spend a lot of time in my artistic past looking at those. So, yeah. I also liked the yellow accents from the original comic design, so I put those in too. And I'm also pretty proud of the mask design I made for this. Now, let me get into a rant for a second here. And this has to do with the Thunderbolts movie. So if you haven't seen it yet, just hit mute and turn off subtitles for the duration that this spoiler sticker is on the screen. Okay, so before I start, I have to say I did enjoy this movie, but they really did Taskmaster dirty in this one. And actually, I am kind of mad about it. The biggest complaint that came up for the Black Widow movie was that Taskmaster's character and personality was essentially non-existent, considering she had no lines in the film. I had no issues with the new take on the origin of the character, since the MCU does that all the time, but I also wish that there was more depth to the character. So I was really excited to see Taskmaster return for Thunderbolts, because this was a chance to see her become more than a weapon, just like the other characters in the story. It would have been the perfect opportunity to develop her personality, perhaps into one that resembled her comic counterpart, but instead, they just killed her off within the first 15 minutes. They had a blank slate for a character with all of this pain and trauma, and instead of developing it, they killed her for shock value. I think it makes me even more upset knowing that there were apparently early scripts that had her live and develop relationships with the other characters in the film. Anyway, rant over. Here's my completed design for Taskmaster in the Marvel Rival style. Thank you again to Isaiah Davis 5957 for this request, and if you have any suggestions for other heroes or villains for me to draw in the Rivals art style, let me know in the comments below. I hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, like, comment, and subscribe, and follow me on Instagram at Kaylaverse to see more of my work. Support me directly through Ko-fi with donations or by buying the downloadable phone and desktop wallpapers. I also have some sticker designs on Redbubble and high-quality art prints on my imprint store. Thanks for watching. I'll see you next time.